Josh, how it's going? Do that again.
I'm doing well, Phil. How are you today?
Good. Living the dream, brother. Living the dream. So you help people recover from porn addiction.
Yes, I do.
I do. And then um, how did you get into that? I mean, like what brought you down that path?
Well, I am a self-taught porn addict. I ended up getting into pornography when I was 12 years old. I didn't understand all the mechanisms of what's going on in the brain, addiction and all trauma, all that stuff. I understand it much better now. Back then it was like how anybody gets into it. Oh, look, naked girls.
Right.
And it was exciting, but I quickly became dependent on the stuff at 12 years old. And I didn't truly recognize that for a few years. Important to note, I also started my 22-year journey of alcoholism when I was 14 years old. So I had these two parallel running paths. I now understand that it was really about the trauma. It was really about not being able to process and handle and understand and cope with certain abuses that took place when I was young. Didn't have the tools to do that. When you discover something like pornography or alcohol or video games or social media or cocaine or cigarettes or whatever it is, um, that became those alcohol and porn became my coping tools until 24 years later where that wasn't tenable. And I ended up getting into recovery for both alcohol and pornography addiction. Spent much of 2014, 2015 in inpatient rehab and lots of intense therapy. Um, and then in 2018, as I was really getting all of this stuff, figuring this out, figuring out what my life was going to be moving forward, I was in my old life a journalist, and I just happened to be standing at a bookstore, if you recall what those things are, and it's it's like Amazon but in a store.
Right.
Um, and I went to the self-help section to see what was available for addiction books. Plenty of general books on addiction. There were books on specific issues like food, like cigarettes, like alcohol. And while there was one that was more about intercourse addiction, there
Hmm.
was nothing about pornography addiction. And between the fact that I know how to write, to that point, I'd probably ghost written 20 books for people on the side. Um, and the fact that I was at a point where I recognized I wanted to work in this field, I wanted to help people, I wanted to be the guy who can be there for somebody before who I never had.
Hmm.
I decided I would write a book about my situation. Thought that would largely be it, but the book got a huge response from the loved ones of porn
Hmm.
addicts.
No.
So I learned about the concept of betrayal trauma, which is what the partner goes through when they discover that the one that they love is secretly using pornography and often has been for a long time. So I learned about betrayal trauma. I did the research on that. I wrote a book about that with a friend of mine who's a therapist. And after that, the pandemic struck. And I was starting to make my money going to colleges and churches and libraries and giving speeches about this
Hmm.
stuff. Well, pandemic hits, nobody wants you to show up and they've locked the doors. So I had to figure out another way. My friend, that therapist, said, you should really consider coaching. You would be good at it. I don't, I live in Maine. If I was to become certified as a therapist, I would only be able to practice in Maine. As a coach, I am able to practice through telehealth all over the world. And I really enjoy that. And it's interesting because now, 6 years into coaching, I have really found that I think this is what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. You know, it only took 45 years, but
Right.
I look at everything that happened in my life and all these little pieces, from being an addict to being learning to be a communicator to as a journalist, you have to ask a lot of personal questions that people don't want to answer. So I already learned that skill. And a lot of the skills I need for this, I already had, and it's all come together. And it finally feels like I'm doing something good with my life.
So, you know what I've noticed is when people get exposed to pornography at a young it's like alcohol or cussing. I'm not saying cussing is an addiction, but you know, when the moment while it's still taboo, I think is why people want to go to it. It's like drugs. You know, what do you think it is about porn that makes it addictive? Do you think it's the availability? Do you think it's the concept
I
or
think a lot of it depends who you are,
right.
and to what level you are interested in it. I mean,
Mhm.
the reality is there's nothing wrong with sexuality. The
No.
reality is, most people who are young and curious and just starting to go through puberty or maybe even right before it, throughout history, this group has been very interested in depictions of sexuality. That's the age where you start to get into that. And now that we have given everybody the greatest porn computer in the world
Mhm.
with the iPhone, more and more kids who never would have got into it
Mhm.
are getting into it. And 15% for males, around 10% for females who start to look at pornography will get to the point that it rises to the level of addiction. Those are higher numbers than ever before. More
Mhm.
interestingly, what we're seeing is not the straight white male numbers exploding. We were already porn addicts. What we're seeing is women. We're seeing people of color. We're seeing people who are religious. We're seeing people who work in areas like being a doctor, being a teacher, who could never be seen coming out of the adult bookstore, who
Right.
are now using it. So, uh, it's really, uh, not a ridiculous thing to want to look at, and for most people, they are able to use it as a recreational activity,
Mhm.
as a surrogate for sexual activity.
Mhm.
These are people who are doing it because they wanna get off, because it feels good to masturbate, because it feels
Mhm.
good to have an orgasm,
Right.
because watching people do sexy things does, if you're especially if you're a kid, does feel taboo.
Mhm.
If you're a little bit older, it's just sexy. It allows you to experience a world you probably will never get to experience, depending on what genres you're into. But ultimately, what has to be remembered, Phil, is that the people who are addicts, like I was, are not doing this for the sex. They're not
No.
doing this for the nudity. They could just as easily, just as I was, be addicted to alcohol or gambling or video games or any of the many chemical addictions that exist out there.
Mhm.
We are doing it because this is what happened to me when I was young. I learned that when I use this stuff, I felt like there was no problem in the world. I
Mhm.
felt like I could escape everything. I felt calm. I felt collected. I felt in control. I felt powerful. And I didn't have that in my life. That's what I was after when I used porn. Yeah, I like the naked ladies just as much as any guy, but
Mhm.
I am not addicted to breasts or addicted to genitals any more
Mhm.
than anybody else is.
Right.
I'm addicted to the feeling it gives me. That feeling is created because of the neurochemicals in my head.
Mhm.
Dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, norepinephrine. These are the things that make me feel so good. That's what I'm actually seeking. That's what I want. My young brain, not knowing all this, was just like, this makes me feel good. When you feel good like that, and when you don't have coping methods to deal with the world on the world's terms, when you don't have tools to deal with problems and trauma and these kinds of situations, as a kid, you're looking for anything. a lot of us find addiction, a lot of us find porn addiction,
Mhm,
especially these days. That triggers the chemical reaction in the mind.
mhm.
And that's what we who are addicts are really after.
Well, yeah, and I understand, and I think one of the bigger problems is availability. You know what I mean? Because I don't know if you remember back in like the early 2000s, late 90s, everyone was wearing a fucking porn star shirt. What it did is it made it untaboo to watch it, and it made it, and these people were celebrated. And I'm not saying that the people that make the, well, I mean, I guess
Well,
it's up for
but
debate. Yeah, I mean, you
there
could say
was
they're
only 1% of 1% of people making porn back then.
right, exactly. And my point is that, I don't listen. It to me, it should be considered prostitution because that's exactly what it is. It's sex for money. But for some ridiculous reason, it is um protected by the First Amendment.
Boxing isn't assault. Explain that to me.
Exactly, right? So, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, I guess when you have 2 consenting adults and this happen to have a camera there, it is what it is. I think there needs to be stronger restrictions for children to get a hold of it, and the age verification thing is a fucking joke. "Oh, yeah, I'm 18, whatever."
What? Click
It
here.
does yeah, click here, that's it. And then so but with that being said, I mean, obviously, when the early 2000s hit and everyone, you had like Jenna Jameson on Monday Night Raw or something like that, it basically piqued people's curiosity to the point to where they started to go investigating this stuff. And it was a downhill from there. And then it became like, oh, look at all the money they're making. Look at all this. And it's not, but you have to think about, I don't know what you believe in. It's none of my business, but that kind of thing, if you're doing that, it probably wears on your soul after a while, if that's what you do for a living. I can only imagine how, and even still today, you see some of these people, they're trying to get their videos removed from the internet because they don't want their children to see it. And it's like, maybe if you're going to have any regrets in this, don't do it. you
Then you
know?
shouldn't have signed up for OnlyFans. Yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. And then of course, you can't judge me, and I'm not saying we should judge people by what they do for a living, but I mean, it's just like I said 10 seconds ago, it's prostitution. That's how I feel about it. And I think that if you don't know how to communicate properly, I know some people that they make it a part of their marriage. Fine, good for them. They're able to do that. So as long as you have, but like you said before, the betrayal trauma, I think that's where it becomes hurtful. And it's like if you have to hide it, it's not good, correct? I mean, does
Well,
that
and
make sense?
to me, absolutely. And one
Yeah.
thing that I have been butting my head up against for the last 5 years is the idea that if you are looking at porn behind your husband or wife or boyfriend or girlfriend's back,
Mhm,
if you are doing it against the rules, if you have a rule in your relationship,
mhm.
no porn, no masturbation, no outside stuff like this. If you're actually breaking that rule, if you're lying about it, that is cheating. And a lot of guys, that's not cheating. It's like cheating isn't just having sex with somebody behind somebody's back. That is cheating with intercourse.
Mhm,
But the definition of cheating, if you have an ace up your sleeve when you're
mhm,
playing poker, that's cheating. If you bring in crib notes when you take a test, that's cheating. Why is it cheating? Because you are breaking a pre-established rule. So how can looking at porn, using porn behind your partner's back not be cheating? It is by definition. You are breaking a rule in the relationship. It's
mhm.
not the, you know, genitals being put together that makes the cheating happen when they're having sex. It is the betrayal of trust. It is the breaking of that promise. It is the ignoring that rule in your relationship. That's where the cheating takes place.
Absolutely. Someone used the analogy of porn's not cheating. I'm like, okay, well then let's put a pair of latex gloves on and choke somebody to death. Is it still murder? You
Yeah,
know what I mean? It's
exactly.
still murder. Like I don't. I think it can. Like I said, in some instances, like for example, we'll just use marriage, right? The woman has some sort of feminine problem like PCOS. All right, it makes sex painful.
Yes.
So obviously, if it's not pleasurable and it's painful, they're not going to want to do it. So now I'm not saying that you shouldn't. I mean, men, we have to, from a biological standpoint, we have to get rid of it, because if we don't, it could cause PPBH. Basically, it inflames the prostate, and it can lead to prostate cancer after a while, and all that. And go ahead.
But it's important to also note
Hmm.
science is not 100% on that.
Really?
Science is not 100% on what a lack of masturbation, what a lack of ejaculation will do to the prostate.
Okay.
There
I
are,
didn't know that.
I've talked to a lot of, because the problem is
Yeah.
there are a ton of 18 and 19-year-old boys who are out there repeating that. Oh, I
Okay.
have to use porn so I don't get prostate cancer. As
Okay.
well, are you also using suntan lotion so you don't get skin cancer? Or
Right.
is it just a convenient excuse to look at porn? So
Yeah.
when people, I do want to clear up that number
Hmm.
one, that's a rare thing to get. And number two, it is just as much of a wives' tale as it is actual science, depending on who you talk to.
All
Uh,
right. Well, there you go. You learn something new every day. I think there's a shame with young kids about wanting to know these things about sexuality,
absolutely,
not
absolutely.
necessarily pornography, but definitely sexuality. I grew up in a very religious household, so it wasn't. My mom tried the best she could. Don't get me wrong. My dad he didn't give a shit. He's like, here's this hustler forums, but anyway, which is obviously I'm joking, but still, it's it's just something in some homes is just not talked about. So the curiosity kills the cat. So they just hop
Well, and
on.
and what you had were very extreme,
Hmm.
different messages.
Right. Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
how is a kid supposed to be able to process two radically extreme messages from
Hmm.
two people that who they believe are supposed to look over them?
Right.
One of
Exactly.
them must be wrong, so, well, let me try this. Hey, this is fun. I guess dad was right.
Right, exactly, and that's where it comes down to. Is just, I think that it just needs to be an open dialogue with your children to kind of say, "Hey, listen, if you're going to do that kind of stuff, you have to do it. It's like smoking or drinking; you have to do it in moderation."
That's exactly it. When
So, yeah.
I'm writing a book for parents right now that hopefully will be out at the end of 26,
Hmm.
and that's one of the biggest parts of it, is
Hmm.
to understand what is normal behavior, to understand what is normal curiosity, and then to understand what is somebody reacting medically to some. It's like somebody uh, who drinks to medicate
Hmm.
versus drinks to just get that buzz.
Exactly.
And when
Yeah.
when you've got kids, you know, using porn gives you a buzz.
Hmm.
Using porn, I mean, that's what happens in the brain. And parents have to understand that this is not the birds and the bees speech. This is not the how babies are made speech. This is not the how do you treat somebody on a date speech. This
Hmm.
is, like you said, cigarettes are bad for you. When you're 18, you can decide for yourself. Alcohol is bad for you. When you're 21, you can decide for yourself. In this house, we don't look at pornography. You can do what you want when you're 18. Just
Hmm.
understand that when kids get involved with cigarettes or alcohol or drugs or pornography or these other things, it can hurt them. It can be
Right,
bad.
and also, but on the flip side of that, though, sometimes you get when you deny somebody something, like, for example, a diabetic, you tell them don't eat the chocolate cake, they're gonna want to eat the chocolate cake. So there comes a point to where you have to say, I think it's a little bit more than that. I think you have to give a good explanation as to why. And you did. You said this is not how sexual activity is supposed to work with a loving partner. Because and that's another thing I wanted to get into as well is the desensitization of it. Because like someone who's never been intimate with anybody before, they're going to look at this stuff and be like, this is how it's supposed to be, right? It's totally not. This is their job. No one does that.
Well, and
you
that
know
what's interesting is that since I've done this job or started this job 6 years ago, I've had several porn stars as clients. I've had
Mhm.
several porn stars approach me and just say, "Keep doing what you're doing. This is
Right.
great. It is
Mhm.
it is fixed." Guess what? Bruce Willis didn't jump off that building in Die Hard.
Right.
And what you're seeing with us is fiction.
Mhm.
Not to be super gross or whatever, but I've had multiple porn stars tell me if you don't see the man's face at the very end during the money shot, odds
Mhm.
are it's not him.
Right.
It's a
Yeah.
body double because he can't perform that day. Um, and that's I mean, and that's the reality of it, but keep in mind, when you and I were young, most of us got our pornography through Playboy magazine,
Mhm.
which was beautiful women you never saw in real life
Right.
posing.
Yeah.
And, um, we got it through things like HBO, which never
Skinemax.
got beyond R rating.
Right.
And so we grew up on actually pretty tame porn. You know, when I was an early addict, I had 3 copies of Playboy magazines, and that was my porn. That those 100 pages of those 3 magazines I looked at again and again and again. There was nothing super graphic there.
Mhm.
Now, if you can type "man, sex, and goat," which are all second grade terms, guess what you're gonna find?
Find. Yeah.
Exactly, and that's part of what I worry the most about
Mhm.
is what is the actual, graphic content? What is the more explicit content going to do to these 12 and 14-year-olds growing up now versus when you and I were there? You and I did not have a list of 50 genres to go to. You wanted to see cheerleaders, you had to hope somebody was wearing a cheerleader outfit. Now
Yeah.
you can go to websites dedicated to this, and you can go to websites dedicated to far, far weirder and far, far more deviant.
Mhm. I don't know if you remember what the old website Tumblr or not,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
but that thing was a cesspool of pornography, and it was not moderated at all.
No, no.
You
And
could find
it was almost geared towards teenage girls.
it really
What was
was,
a
and yeah.
pornography slash poetry site.
Yeah, and it was just I mean, it was disgusting some of the stuff like, listen, I'm not an innocent person, so sometimes you go in there and you would just but you would go there for an innocent means to look at something or read an article or whatever, and it get like you're like,
Yeah.
"I am officially traumatized. I am not the same person I was 10 seconds ago because of what I just saw." And it's like and the thing is that what I think it with the industry in itself, not that I've ever been a part of it, but excuse me, they have to start, like, topping it, like, or going over the top to make it
That's the typical story of addiction.
Mhm. Right.
It
Yeah.
has to get more extreme. It has to get bigger. You know, when I was an alcoholic at 14, 2 beers gave me a buzz. By the
Right.
time I graduated high school, I needed a six pack. By the time I was 30, or by the time I was 25, I needed a case. By the time I was 30, I had to get away from beer because it wasn't making me drunk anymore.
Right.
Watching a man and a woman have sex after 2 or 3 years of watching that, well, big deal. Let's throw in
Yeah.
another woman.
Right.
Let's make them all different nationalities.
Mhm.
Let's make this in the back of a restaurant.
Yeah.
Let's, you know what, and it just gets weirder and weirder and weirder.
Mhm.
A lot of that has to do with because if you're going to meet people's needs constantly adjust and need more explicit, uh, more taboo. They need
Mhm.
something because all these neurotransmitters in your brain over time they develop to get used to this stuff. If
Yeah,
you're
you
going to
become
be able to tweak them and flick them,
yeah.
the normal porn isn't going to work anymore.
No,
You're
it's
going
not,
to
and
need something taboo and extreme to the point where one of my clients explained this so well to me years ago. He's like, I watch stuff and I get off to stuff that if I opened my door at my hotel room and saw it happening, I would shut the door and run down the hall and go to the front desk and immediately tell them what was happening.
Mhm.
But because it's on my computer screen, because I'm alone, because it's behind closed doors, well, let's take a look and see what really happens in these scenarios. Because
Right.
most of us are never going to end up on a beach in a beachfront orgy.
Right.
So if you want to experience a beachfront orgy, you have to go online. At least
Yeah.
99.999% of us.
Yeah, exactly. Well, a buddy of mine years ago, he said it perfectly. He said, "It's people you'll never meet doing stuff you'll never do." You know, and it's literal I mean, so but let's speaking of people, let's talk about that for a second. Let's talk about the people that do this, the actors, and I use that term loosely. But, years ago, there was this website, it was called Triple X Church. I don't think it's still around anymore, but what
I
it
remember them.
was yeah, they were these evangelists that would go to porn conventions and and witness to these porn stars and do their hair, do their makeup, and try to help them, you know? But it came from a place of non-judgment. It came from a place of really trying to help, you know what I mean? So that's the key right there. And the guy that was talking about it, he was saying that there was a young man walking around, you know, obviously 18 or whatever, because it was at the Adult Entertainment Expo in Vegas.
Yeah, the
And
AVN.
yeah, the AVN, which is their big Oscars or whatever you want to call it. And so anyways, he was walking through and this guy, this young man of 19, 20, or ever how old he was like, I'm never gonna need a girlfriend, you know? And that is fucking sad that they
That's
think
yeah.
yeah. I mean, that they think that this stuff can replace a living, breathing partner. Like, I couldn't
Well,
imagine, you know? Yeah.
and
But
the last 20 years of pornography, we really have to look at the before and after is high speed internet. That's the before and after moment is high speed internet. Those, I mean, and nobody under 30 really remembers a world before high speed internet at this point.
right.
Which you and I remember before the internet as a whole. We
Yeah.
remember slow internet. We remember dial up. You know, I still hear the dial up tone and it's like porn time, because that was the siren call. That was the theme song to looking at porn was the
Uh-huh.
modem sound. But that all of this porn is, and I think a lot of the OnlyFans stuff
Mhm.
is creating a world of especially young men who don't understand sex.
Right.
You know, if you are 10 years old and you start watching some of this porn seems really very realistic.
Uh-huh.
And if you think that this is what sex is, if you think this is the way it's supposed to be, if you don't know that it's not a uh, reality show. It's not a documentary. There are a ton of women now, and this is a very interesting phenomenon that's happening. There are a ton of women now, especially of college age, who will not have sex with virgin men. And the reason, and I learned about this about 5 or probably about 6 years ago, right before the pandemic. I was doing a presentation at a health center at a college around here, health center for women, and I did my whole song and dance, and we got to the Q&A, and one of them raised her hand and said, "Do you know about girls not wanting to have sex with virgin men?" And I said, "Not really." And several of their eyes kinda lit up. And they started explaining this to me, and I've heard this many times since. Because young men, boys, are growing up on porn, because they are literally seeing thousands of sexual encounters. They are experiencing often hundreds, if not low thousands of hours of pornography.
Mhm.
When they finally get to that shining star in the sky of a girl is willing to have sex with me, a
Mhm.
lot, and these are normal guys, not
Yeah.
deviants by any means.
Right.
A girl will bring them back to their apartment, bring them back to their dorm room. And the guy is, you know, sweet as can be. And they get to the situation where they're about to have sex, and the guy will push her backward onto the bed. And okay, come on, bitch, let's go.
But yeah, all that stupid
And
shit.
and
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
these girls are, I don't want to be treated like this. Stop it. So what I heard from these women is that ultimately they don't want to be with sexually inexperienced older boys or young men because they've taken so many cues from pornography and how you're supposed to act as a man. They've taken that education from pornography. These women don't want to reteach them. These
No,
women don't
no.
want to correct them. These women don't want to deal with this crap. And so you now have a lot of men in this world, younger men especially, who feel shunned, who feel like they'll never get a girl. You've got this whole incel movement existing, this whole nofap red pill movement existing.
Mhm.
And it's largely because we are raising so many of our kids. And I think this is going to happen with girls eventually too. We
Mhm.
are raising our kids in an environment where all of their knowledge about the actual mechanisms of sexuality come from pornography. And
Yeah.
that's not the place to learn.
No, it's definitely not. So how would you unwire somebody like that, that they think that this is, this is how it's supposed to be? Like, what how do you say, "No, it's fucking not?"
Well, you find out, do they understand that they're addicted, or do they understand that their view of this is very screwed up? And
Mhm.
one of the problems when you're talking about this group of guys, one of the other things that the internet has created is the ability to have community with people, like minded people all over the world. So what happens is they get inside a vacuum, they get inside an echo chamber. And when you've got hundreds or thousands of guys around the world, also it's the girl's problem. It's
Right,
not
yeah.
us. It must
Mhm.
just be the way that we look. Because you've got all these guys who think their ultimate problem is that their eyebrows are too close together or their
Right.
cheekbones are not defined, when the problem is they have no personality because they've sat
Boom.
in front of the computer for the last 20 years, when
Right.
they don't know how to talk to somebody, when they can't be funny, when so many of these guys look like they haven't taken a shower in a week.
I know, oh my god, yeah, and listen, like, I remember years ago, I read a story about this woman, she was on a date. The dude showed up in baggy sweatpants, greasy hair, a baseball cap.
That's
Take care of
exactly it.
yourself, brush your teeth, take a fucking shower, show some effort. Like, I'll tell you a story. The first date that I had with my girlfriend right now, I met her at a coffee shop. I brought her flowers. When she walked in the room, I stood up, I gave her a hug. All that stuff.
What the hell was wrong with
It's
you?
I don't know, it's fucking strange, right? So, but no, and it's like, so, and people think that it's, I remember, and yet again, another anecdotal story, but I used to work at a hospital and they had a big company Christmas party. And there was a guy, this woman, she asked a guy that nobody would ask because of his looks. She was just trying to be nice. And his response at the end of the night was, she asked him to go to the party. And his response at the end of the night was, "Are we going to have sex?" It's like, fucking no, dude. Like, you have to reel in the expectations that not, and I think yet again, it turns in, it all ties into the porn thing is they think that, oh, well, we're hanging out. So we're definitely going to fuck
Yeah.
or something like that. And that's because that's
and
how it
and
happens
and
in
they
that
view
pornography.
women as objects.
Objects,
I I I
100%.
get a lot of these guys as clients, and when I talk to them, they're like, a lot of them have to be deprogrammed from blaming the women.
Yeah.
Only 20% of girls like 80% of men. Well, if you're in the 80% that doesn't wipe your ass, that may be part of the reason, my friend.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
and just these urban legends that aren't true
Mhm.
about this stuff.
Uh,
And you've got to, it's sadly these guys, because they can be in that echo chamber, they don't think the problem is them, or if the problem is them, it has to do with their looks, which they can't
right.
control.
Mhm. Well, it's their height or they're
Well,
bald or
and
whatever.
it's like, yeah,
Yeah,
ugly people don't get this. And it's like, dude, go to Walmart. Ugly people partner up all the
all the
time.
time. Have you
All
ever,
the time.
it's a completely different topic, but do you remember the website peopleofwalmart.com?
Oh, loved it.
That was a treasure trove, man. I missed it
Yeah.
because I mean, if you ever felt bad, go to peopleofwalmart.com. And I don't mean to judge anybody, but holy shit, if you don't feel better about yourself after that,
Yes. Yeah. I remember that very well.
eh, life is about 50-50, right? It takes a man and a woman to make a relationship. It takes a man and a woman to break it. So this idea that it's one sex's fault over the other is it's a straw man argument in my brain because women, the expectations of women can be whatever. I think there's this thing of staying in your lane. You know what I mean? Like a lot of guys that somebody doesn't put effort in, or whatever, they're not going to attract anybody because they don't put the effort in, you
Well,
know?
you play video games 10
Mhm.
hours a day.
Right.
What is it that makes me want to be with you because of that?
Exactly. Nothing. And it's yeah.
You know,
I mean,
okay,
if you
you're the third greatest Mario Kart racer in our state.
it's yeah, it's kinda like being the tallest midget.
Yeah, it's being the thinnest kid at fat camp.
Right, exactly. And listen, I'm not shitting on anybody, but it's like because we all have problems and we all have crutches in life. I understand that. But it's like anything else. Like I said earlier, you just can't let it take over. But the problem is there's that tipping point of where it does, and there's no notification saying,
No, no,
you're
and
here,
it's the taboo of number 1, uh, it not really being out there in society that this is a legit problem, and number 2, even once you accept it's a legit problem, you have to go get help and admit it to people. And those first time sessions I have with people, they show up, eyes wide open, looking like a deer in headlights. And I have the most important thing for me to get over to a new client is I'm not here to judge you. I'm not here to make any kind of ruling on what you looked at. Hell, I was a porn addict 24 years. Whatever you looked at, guessing I've seen it too. So who am I to judge? Because this is not being a porn addict, or even just, be use somebody who uses too much porn.
Mhm,
It's not usually a moral failing. In fact, I've never met anybody with whom it's a moral failing. It
mhm,
is something that got going years ago. And the reason you may use porn now at 22 or 32 or 42 isn't the same reason you used it because you were when you were 12, but you have the same faulty coping mechanisms. You've never
mhm,
figured out how to deal with the world because you can always run to the naked people. But here you are 25 years later, it's not just naked people anymore.
mhm.
It's transsexual Eskimos throwing fish sticks at naked leprechauns while a mariachi band plays.
Hold on,
That's what you need to get off
hold
at
on.
that
I'm
point.
writing this down. Hang
And
on.
and because of the internet, I'm sure that's out there somewhere.
Oh, listen, it's what is it? Rule 42? Is that what it's
Yeah,
called? If it exists, there's a porn of it. I think a lot of it also comes from the fear of rejection of a relationship. I think it also comes from the fear of being hurt. And it's like, and then also on both sides of the spectrum, like I said earlier on, both sexes have um almost impossible standards these days. And it's like maybe, and I'm not saying you need to lower them, but just be a little bit more reasonable with them. Like, see me, I don't, as I've said before on the show, I'm 6'4", right? So that puts me in a higher category than some people. And it's unfortunately, but it's like I'm in the top 1% of men because of my height. And it's like, but it also, that doesn't make me anything special. It just makes me a tall guy and I have to buy
right.
bigger
You'll never
shoes. You
be a
know what I mean?
jockey.
No, of course not. And it's like, and then, and I also have back pain because of that. So there you go. But it's also, I mean, it doesn't make me special because of that. It doesn't make me any more desirable than that. But I think that also comes from um, um, a thing of being protected when it comes for women, you know what I mean, or something like that, or a concept of it. So, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's just, but there's also I know plenty of guys that are a little on the shorter side and they're great dudes. So it's just, but I think that with social media, pornography, I think all of it really it has just given us all these unreal expectations, and it's also we can talk about how men feel inadequate when they watch porn because these guys, I don't know what they're eating or they grew up near Chernobyl or some shit. But some of them is like, what the fuck is that thing?
How
You
do
know
you
what I
how
mean?
d how do you walk from place to place without
And
tripping?
and how do you not faint?
Yeah, yeah.
From lack of blood to your brain. But then again, and also, I kind of want to get into this a little bit if you got time. Um, the porn star regret. Let's talk about that for a minute. So now, there's a rash of these women that are done with their career. Like I don't want to mention too many names, but the one that pops in my head because she was on ESPN was Mia Khalifa, right? She's like, I want it gone. I want it gone. It's, it's kind of
Why are
unringing a
you still
bell.
using your porn star name, Mia?
Exactly. You know what I mean? And it's like, so, but then again, that's what she's known by. And then, and I remember she was she had done an interview and she was doing a business arrangement at a sidewalk cafe kind of thing. And some fan of her previous vocation came up and wanted to have a conversation with her and was bringing it up. And the woman said, "It's probably not even her. I can't recognize her without cum on her face." You know what I mean? So and that's like, ugh, I mean, they are people, but it's also, you can't kind of have it both ways. You can't
Well,
make your money
and
doing
and
this.
this is from lack of education. This is
Mhm.
one of the reasons, I don't talk a lot about this stuff, but this is one of the reasons why we need to talk about all of this. Um, it is disturbing how many, especially young females, are on
Mhm.
OnlyFans.
Yeah.
And not just OnlyFans, on the copycat sites, of which there are
Mhm.
now a lot, of
Right.
all of these webcam sites
Mhm.
where, you know, give me $3, I'll take my top off.
Right. Yeah.
Is that really all your boobs are worth to you is $3? Um, but what I have noticed, I wrote a book at the beginning of the pandemic, the last book before I became a therapist, which was called Porn in the Pandemic: How 3 Months Changed Everything. And I looked at the first 3 months of the pandemic and how that probably, for the online world of pornography, it probably fast forwarded 5 years in those
Mhm.
3 months because
Yeah.
everybody was at home. Porn site statistics doubled and tripled in a lot of cases. And a lot of and one of the things I did at the very beginning of the pandemic, I interviewed several established cam people. I interviewed several established OnlyFans people and said, why do you do this? What do you think the pandemic will do? Who do you think will come join this in the pandemic? What will happen? And they had their predictions. Um, and then I interviewed a bunch of young women and young men who started the cam thing, who started the
Mhm.
OnlyFans thing at the beginning of the pandemic because they were on furlough. And these are the people who are the bartenders, the waitresses, the hostesses, the retail workers who are young, generally have to care about their appearance
Mhm.
and have the skills in hospitality to be warm and kind. So a lot of them decided, since I don't have any income and I'm not going to, shit on anybody who has to make
Mhm.
decisions for
Right.
themselves and their kids, but I'll just go do this. I can do it yourself porn.
Mhm.
The statistics with OnlyFans are that on January 1st, 2020, they had about 300,000 content creators. 1 year later, they had about 3 million. They are now sitting at, 6, 7 years later now, they're sitting at over 4 million. And
Wow.
these are 4 million people
Mhm.
who were not making pornography 8 years ago, who are now in the world making it. Now, some of them are doing it for money. I interviewed many of these, other people I'm going to school, I'm doing this, it's a job. And cool. A lot of these younger people, especially the younger women, 18, 19, 20, I'm just
Mhm.
doing this for money. Once the shop
Right.
opens, I'm back there. Once the restaurant opens, I'm back
Mhm.
there. And I'm just going to do lingerie or bikinis. And
Mhm.
okay, cool. Get back to them a couple months later. Some of them stuck with that, and some of them were like, I'm not going anywhere. And it wasn't about the money. It was about,
The
I can't
attention.
get a date in real life.
Oh, that
And
too. Yeah.
I've got guys all over the world asking me to go out with them. I can't get people to look at me sideways in real life, but I put up a picture of my butt online and
Mhm.
I can have 20 guys pay $5 each in the first hour just by showing my butt online. What you see with these people is they start to, I remember this one girl who was 19 years old. She's like, I've got a guy in, I don't even, Bahrain or whatever it was, who he will marry me and I will get $500,000. And she talked to, and I truly believe this was true. I believe this was just a rich guy trolling for young girls. And
Mhm.
he offered to marry me and bring me over there. And it's like, okay, what I'm hearing from you and what I'm hearing from a lot of these young ladies is not look at my boobs, look at me have sex, because most of them drop that lingerie and drop that bikini stuff on the second week. They started going full nude. Some of them even, started masturbating or even hooking up with people online
Mhm.
soon enough. And in talking to them, what I heard was when I go online and do this stuff, I get a dopamine hit. When I go
100%.
online and do this stuff, I get a serotonin hit. I am making porn for a lot of the same reasons people are consuming porn. And
Mhm.
it's through this time period and doing the research that I truly believe that there are two sides to the porn addiction coin. There is
100%. Yeah.
consuming it and there is making it. And
Mhm.
we haven't looked at this making it side of the coin
No,
yet.
we
These
haven't.
women who are like, I feel love when I get this, I get attention when I do this.
Mhm.
It's okay. That's not healthy. You're trading in a lot of personal things that you may very much regret sharing later on because, frankly, your teenage son is not going to want to stumble upon, or he's not going to want his friends who know it's out
Mhm.
there to show him his mom getting double teamed 20 years ago.
Right. To bring it up, so, there was an OnlyFans model. She has a podcast, and I didn't see the whole thing, but I saw the clip. Her brother was younger than her, and he was pissed at her because she's like, "You're doing this. I'm gonna be applying for colleges soon, and people know you do this. So now I'm gonna get ridiculed for it." But the other thing I wanted to mention was I had an old neighbor of mine. She did, movies, and then she did camming as well. One night, she was up doing her thing, and her fiance, whatever he was, pimp. She's like, he told me that she went to bed. She came to bed and goes, "I made 4 grand tonight." So the money's there, but but it also, but what you're doing is you're trading a piece of who you are for money,
Well,
and
and the money is there for the people who are good at it. It's
right.
important to point out
That's a yeah,
the average OnlyFans content creator makes $180 a month.
yeah, if they're lucky,
You can
I think,
collect
yeah,
bottles on the beach and make more
and
money.
make more money than that because and now I'm gonna say this, it might be a little controversial, but it's also people that are fucking lazy. They don't want to get a job. One of my old friends, tattoo artist, his wife had an OnlyFans, and it was him and her. And I never watched it because I don't need to see my friends do that kind of stuff. And they're not really friends; they were more of an acquaintance of mine. And my friend that knew them, he was watching it, and the stuff that they were doing. That's not what you do in a loving relationship. You know what I mean? But I think that it's everything can be useful in some ways. I don't. I mean, I'm still. I don't know how much intrinsic value pornography has, if any.
It can teach biology. That's the only one I've ever found. It can teach biology.
That's very true. And you also got to think like, so I think it's we can go down a conspiracy theory thing down another way, but I think it also makes men and women now weak, gives them low drive to do anything because back in the day we had a I don't want to say evolutionary, but maybe that's what it is, and we had a drive to procreate. I was listening to Joe Rogan, and he some Amazon people, they got Starlink and phones, and they started looking at porn. Guess what happened? They didn't do shit. They quit hunting, they quit gathering, they quit fishing, they quit doing all this other stuff because now they don't need to, because it's, I mean, obviously they need to eat, but it's also they don't need to worry about finding a mate because they can just slap one around and call it a day. But my other problem with it is it's just I think it's a testosterone killer for men. It's because you're seeing the visualization, you're getting rid of the demons as we call it sometimes. And it just I think it makes men lazy in some
Can
ways. You know what I'm saying?
can I interject?
Sure, go ahead.
You're actually incorrect.
Okay.
Um, Testosterone
Mhm.
doesn't have anything to do with the pornographic experience. It does have to do with the actual if you have intercourse addiction, you need to go
Mm,
look at the testosterone. With
that's true.
pornography addiction, that really
Mhm.
doesn't have much to do with it because here's what's happening.
Okay.
is that those people can still enjoy hunting and gathering or playing basketball or going to a concert or doing whatever
Mhm.
makes you happy naturally. But
Right.
what happens inside the porn addict, and I'm sure that this is a sliding scale as well,
Yeah, of
what
course.
happens inside the porn addict is that those chemicals that are created, for instance, dopamine or serotonin, these are made all the time. This
Yeah,
is
it's
what
true.
makes you have a good day. This is what makes you feel good after the gym. This
Mhm.
is, you are supposed to have these chemicals naturally. They're known as the pleasure chemicals, the happy chemicals. But what happens during porn use, and especially porn addiction as you build it up, is that you start to get 2 and 3 and 4 times the natural dopamine, the natural
Mhm.
norepinephrine. If you can go and sit down and whatever it is, whether it's masturbation or rolling dice or whatever it is, if
Yeah.
you can
Mhm.
get 3, 4 times the happy feeling coming in, well, that's
Mhm.
great. But here's the thing, all the other natural stuff that used to make you happy, it doesn't make you happy anymore because you can't produce that amount of chemicals. So even though you may be doing things in life, one of the true symptoms of pornography addiction is that you stop doing pleasurable things. You
Right.
stop hanging out with friends. You don't have fun anymore because even though it might be fun,
Mhm.
it's not the chemical reaction and the good feeling you get from porn. So you
Mhm.
go for the porn because it's like, do you want a shot glass of beer or do you want a tumbler full of vodka?
Right, and I
Well,
think that's where I got it conflated from. So, I mean,
yeah,
it might, instead of being a testosterone killer, maybe that's what I was thinking, it can be a social, dampener, we'll put it that way.
yes,
You know
yes,
what I mean? Because instead, yeah,
absolutely.
think that it depends on the level of addiction, I guess. If you're gonna, if it's gonna make you lazy, but then again, I mean, it's the video games and eating too much can make you lazy too,
Right.
so
Well,
it's a
and those are also addictions
yeah.
because
Mhm,
the food is always going to taste the same. You can count
mhm,
on it. The
right,
video game, there's a score in the upper corner, so you
mhm.
can measure how successful you are.
Exactly. Yeah,
This is
and then
what
also with those things, you don't have to worry about the fear of rejection,
Nope.
you know?
Nope.
So when people come on my show, I have 3 questions I ask them. The first question is, "What are 2 beliefs that make you Josh?"
One is something I heard from Nietzsche. It's a direct quote from him. I heard this in high school. I firmly believe it. And that quote is, that which is done out of love takes place beyond good and evil. That is because, and that leads into my second belief, which is ultimately all of our emotions, all of our thoughts, everything that we do is predicated on one of two emotions, situations, feelings, and that is love or fear. I believe everything in life can be traced back to love and fear. You're either doing a loving thing or you're doing a fearful thing. And the more we can be in love, the better things will be.
Right, and the second question is, you're about to shove off the mortal coil, go to the next whatever you believe in. What do you wanna be remembered for?
I want to be remembered by the people I know and care about. I don't care if anybody else remembers me. I don't care if it's good or bad. I truly do not at this point. I don't care if anybody comes to my funeral. I don't care if I have a funeral.
Mhm.
What I care about is that the people who are closest to me feel like I added to their lives and not subtracted from them.
Nice, nice, and the third question is, what makes you happy?
Good question. I don't really shoot for happiness anymore. I think that was
Mhm,
part of my problem with addiction.
mhm,
I was constantly chasing happiness. And what I chase now is contentment. Happiness is the cookie. Happiness is the roller coaster. Happiness is my kid, winning the football game. Uh,
mhm,
and there is sadness and there is anger and there are all of these normal human emotions that happen. When we're not being ruled by one of those emotions, positive or negative, I just try to be content. I just try to have a healthy, peaceful, calm baseline because for most of the time it wasn't that. And if I can just be okay with the way things are, that actually makes me happy.
There you go. And, where can people find you?
Uh, the best place to go is right now my website, which is thatcorncoach.com, corn like the vegetable, because while you can see boobs all over TikTok, you're not allowed to say the word porn. So
Yeah,
it's thatcorncoach.com. And then if you happen to be on TikTok, my name there is that dot corncoach.com, or
awesome.
not .com, but just that dot corncoach. So either of those places, you can learn all about me. Thatcorncoach.com. My books are there. You can schedule with me. You can learn more about me, resources about porn, blah, 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 blah.
Gotcha. Oh, I wanna say thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. I think it was a great conversation, and, thanks for listening, everybody.
I enjoyed it. Thank you.